If you are a realtor watching this right now and you feel stuck, I want you to hear me. Today's a great video for you to watch. I want you to understand you do not need a new lead source. You do not need a new CRM. You do not need a new shiny object. What you need is a simple plan that you can run with consistently and the right people around you. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm John Shookman, and over the last few months, I've been sharing my personal journey and, of course, some advice for you guys to grow your business organically through social media, just like I did. And it's really been about organic social media, consistency, personal branding, and relationships. Starting here in February, I'm bringing something new to you guys, and I'm excited about it. And I've been working on this for a few months. I am going to start periodically, probably a couple times a month on the channel, be interviewing people that I am in business with and partnered with. And not only that, but people that I respect a ton in the real estate industry for their creativity, their consistency, and their goal setting and planning, and just how much they have absolutely dominated with simple, effective strategies to crush it in their real estate business. You will be hearing from them as they work in the trenches building their real estate business. And I couldn't think of a better first guest than my friend, mentor, and sponsor here at eXp Realty, Jeremy Kane. Jeremy is a four-time Icon Award winner, one of the top agents at eXp, and he's built a business that is wildly simple, really, while balancing life as a dad, a husband to his wife, Sarah, and a dad to their three beautiful girls. And it's pretty simple, but most people won't do the work because it requires consistency. And what I love about Jeremy is he doesn't try to sound flashy or chase trends. He's built something sustainable. And so in this interview, you're going to hear a few things that I want you to listen for. Number one, I think Jeremy's background long before real estate and coaching and sports is so interesting because I believe it really shaped the way he works with people and cares for them. And caring about relationships, like we've talked about this week, matters. And that matters more than you think. Number two, you will hear how he built a business that runs on relationships and referrals, where his phone just rings because of people trusting him. And number three, one of the most important things he talks about is this: the idea of having an active pillar and a passive pillar, meaning you need one thing that creates business now and one thing, like social media, that compounds and builds business later. And I want to say this because I know what a lot of agents are doing right now. They're bouncing around, trying new things, switching platforms, like we've been talking about, starting, stopping, starting, stopping. And Jeremy is the opposite. He's proof that simple things done consistently beat complicated, overdone stuff occasionally. And so here's what I want you to do while you watch. Don't try to take 20 notes. Don't try to reinvent your whole business. Listen for one thing you can apply this week. Maybe it's him talking about how he goes Facebook Live every week, right? Or whatever it is, take one thing away. And if you're newer, pay close attention to when he talks about connecting with connectors, not just chasing buyers and sellers. So let's jump in. Enjoy this interview with my friend, mentor, and four-time Icon Award winner at eXp Realty, Jeremy Kane. We've got a lot of fun stories about how we first connected and how stubborn John was, but we'll get to that towards the end. First and foremost, let's kind of jump into it. Jeremy, you are a four-time Icon Award winner, one of the top agents at eXp. Left your dad's brokerage to come here, but let's even jump all the way back, sort of towards the beginning, right? You have a background in coaching. You coached some of the McCaffrey brothers, Christian's brothers, and stuff. So, like, but let's kind of talk about the transition into real estate for people who may not know. Give us the quick version, like in real estate. Who's Jeremy Kane? How did he get to real estate? And how did he start to create success in his business?
Yeah, like any good high school grad, I went to college, went to CSU, graduated in 4 years with a psychology degree. The only thing I really learned from that, besides obviously the amazing life experiences and things that you get from college life that we don't have to regurgitate here, but was I didn't want to go back to school, which with a
Hmm.
psychology degree leaves you kind of open-handed, right? So I did end up getting into corrections. I was a case manager at a corrections facility, non-residential in Adams County, Colorado. And then I decided that I wanted to save the world before it was a major problem. My success rate wasn't very good. And as an athlete and a high achiever and a 4-year college grad and all the things, like I was not having success helping these people rehabilitate. Mostly at that time, it was methamphetamine based uh, crimes. And so I decided I was going to change the world before it was a problem. So I got into teaching, taught at-risk kids 6th through 12th grade. That allowed me to coach high school basketball. I coached at Devlin High School for about 8 years. And that's when I coached against Christian, and I first got exposed to the athlete that he was, and was great. We, whatever. And then eventually moved on to the school that he had just left and coached his brothers at Valor Christian, won a state title. And then I started a family, right? I was married then, but right around the time I got my real estate license, about 6 months after, and then had our first daughter about 2.5 years later. So that allowed me to, that didn't allow me to coach anymore and put that time in. And as I kind of ran the course of my educational career, wanted to get into real estate. It was a family business. I called my dad. Wasn't quite sure what he would say because it was after the big crash, 08, 09. A lot of people talk about our market now and call it a crash, and it's far from that. So I was a little nervous to see what he'd say, and he absolutely said, "You're going to be awesome at it. Let's go." And so ever since then, kind of hit the ground running. We did co-list my very first property, but other than that, kind of ran separate businesses. He was a managing broker, focused on leadership, training, doing that kind of stuff. And I just kind of took off with, the modern way to build a real estate business since he's just an old guy.
So let's talk about that. When you say the modern business, I mean, I think people know us in our group, the Wolf Pack, but I feel like even me, someone that does a lot of social media, I feel like some of the things I've learned from you from client reviews, which you're actually talking about in a little bit on our Wolf Pack call that we have every week with Mike Sherrard. Like, tell us about those tactics early on that really led to you getting business because to build a business, with your dad and then become a four-time icon at EXP, not a lot of people do that. And so it's obvious there's obviously something there that sticks out that I'd love to tell agents that I'd love for you to tell agents about.
Yeah, I think the modern way to build it is still connect people to people. And so I stumbled across Brian Buffini and
Hmm.
did the Peak Producers platform that he offered, and ultimately just realized that I was a connector of people. And, at that time, Brian's done a few things with social media and things like that, but at that time, it wasn't even a blip on his radar, right? So I just implemented his system in a social media organic way, using Messenger to connect with a few people and get that going. And once that started snowballing, it really hasn't stopped for 12 and a half years. And to this day, like I don't need to do a ton of prospecting to earn, icon awards and things like that. My phone rings, it's past clients, it's past client referrals, it's referrals from people in my circle that I'm, actively engaging with and so on.
Yeah, so I mean, I think let's kind of talk about this a little bit. There are so many agents out there, and I think one of the things I appreciate and respect about you is it's pretty simple. I joke with people that like my brain is not that big. I do the simple things consistently, and that's the stuff that works. I'm on social media every day. I reach out to people. We were talking on a mastermind call on my Monday group that you're on with us, and a few weeks ago, you're like, guys, I just go Facebook Live every Wednesday. Like it's not that hard. People see it. People reach out to me. I feel like here in 2026, we're a month into 2026. And I feel like I still see agents out there that are like, well, let me try TikTok. Let me do this. Let me do this. What would you say? Like, are we just overthinking it and we just need to go back to basics and do the same thing consistently? Is that kind of what agents are missing?
I mean, honestly, like if you opened up my phone and you look at my vision board and things like that, you're going to see the word simplicity, right?
Hmm.
That's my word of the year. I want to be simple and I want to do what's right. Back to the basics is a little bit of an overused term. I think it's too basic for me.
Hmm.
um, but I'm simplifying what I'm doing, right? I've chased a lot of dead end roads. I've chased a lot of lead generation ideas and things like that. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's my Facebook presence, my going live, notifying people every time I'm doing that, and you know, just basic connections and my industry connections that make it work, right? And then obviously you mentioned the annual review, which is something I have created based off of a couple in-person trainings that I did here. And if I'm going to help people build wealth, I need to make sure that I'm acting as a, no, not legally, but acting as a financial planner when it comes to the real
Hmm.
estate space and talking about the asset and what, future casting and future pacing, what's that looking for? What do you need from your business and all of those things? So, um, I think it's that. I think everything works and nothing doesn't is kind of
Hmm.
my strategy here, but I'm not going to do a bunch of things. I'm going to do 100 annual reviews this year. I'm going to go live every single, I think I'm going to do Fridays now. I'm going to
Hmm.
change that up a little bit to just
Hmm.
see if there's a difference based on the interactions and things. And, that's pretty much it. And then I'm going to focus on, agents and helping agents find their simple and find the things that work for them so that they can scale their businesses.
Yeah, let's talk. It's so interesting getting coaching from you, which I appreciate so much. And now you coaching, you have 200 agents. Let's talk for agents out there who don't understand. I think they look at people like us and be like, okay, cool. I'll just go live every Wednesday or Friday like Jeremy. I'll just post every day like John and I'll achieve success. But I think what agents need to understand, and you talk about this a lot in your course that I'm happy to link people to if they're interested, is that people need an active pillar and a passive pillar. For agents out there that have no idea what I'm talking about, can you kind of explain the difference and why, as especially as a new agent, they need both?
Yeah, I think I kind of picked this up from Mike Sherrard when he would talk about like, hey, I'm coaching people, and the biggest red flag I get is when will I get a deal from doing YouTube? Because he knows that it takes a long enough time that the consistency has to be there before the results. And sometimes you do get a flash in the pan, right? You post a video, you get one, right? But that's not, sustainable overall. So a passive pillar being social media where people are engaging or consuming the content that you're putting out, right, is just planting seeds, right? If you, I'm talking about the market and talking about a seller strategy or a buyer strategy, and someone's like, "Oh, who was I thinking about that this kind of relates to them?" It sounds like Jeremy's speaking to them, right? That's passive, and they might not reach out, but then when they see me again, or they're out to lunch with somebody scrolling through social media and with that person, and they're like, "Oh, Jeremy said this once and I was meaning to tell you," right? So it's not necessarily passive, and I think that's the thing that people struggle with the most when it comes to either strategy, and we'll get to active in a second, is if I am just trying to speak to the end buyer or seller, I am missing the mark, right? Because that's a one-to-one strategy. I am trying to speak to the people that are connected in order to give them information to make an introduction to me when that becomes possible. Right. So everyone's like, well, they're not going to buy or sell, or they're not going to do this. Well, they may be the mayor of your town legitimately. And yes, they're probably not going to buy or sell a house while they're the mayor. But how many conversations do they come across every single day? Right. And that's a little bit of an extreme example,
Hmm.
but all of my content, everything that I do, my annual reviews are not to get that person as a client.
Hmm.
They're to get everybody in that person's circle as a client. And if I provide enough value and I lead with value and I lead with consistency on the market and those kind of things, then eventually that person who's ultra connected or the person who's a super introvert who has five close friends will be watching that and be like, "Oh, you need to talk to Jeremy when XYZ happens." And so I think that that's the key as it comes. As far as active strategies, I think we need to be actively reaching out, right? I've chosen to really tailor my active strategies to my sphere of influence and past clients. I understand that a lot of agents and probably a lot of agents watching this don't have 500 past clients.
Hmm.
Um, and so an active strategy is open houses, right? Where you're
Yep.
actively in the field, or cold calling, or door knocking, or farming, or, you know, community events or networking. You can do a lot of different things actively, but it involves you going out to the field. And even there, I would still talk to you about, okay, you're looking to connect with connectors versus you're looking to connect with buyers or sellers.
hmm And I think one of the cool things is, and even your Facebook Lives and everything, one of the cool things about this that I want agents to understand is when you have an active strategy and a passive strategy, while we're recording this Zoom call, while we're recording this YouTube video, our social media is doing work behind the scenes. It is working for us. Now, this becomes content later. So anyone that's posting on social media, heck, while you're sleeping, you might have potential buyers or sellers looking at your stuff. And I think I've watched you really build a great foundation of like people know, like, and trust you. I mean, every Sunday, right? We won't talk about football. A few weeks ago, my Eagles lost, and we don't want to talk about it. Um, but but like, it's very interesting because even like a few weeks ago, you put, hey, tailgating at the Broncos game. And so whenever you put a tailgate out there, I'll bet you if people come there that one day become clients because you're hanging out, you're drinking beers at the Broncos game, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, I did you know my mom was looking to sell or whatever?" I'm sure. I mean, jump in here, but I'm sure that's happened to you many times.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the people that, there's a good old boy that has a tailgate, and his daughter and I went to college. Actually, his daughter went to college with my best friend's sister, blah, blah, blah. But we became friends and started going to his tailgates and stuff like that. That's been four, five, six deals from that family, just, through referrals and things like that. So that's part of it. It's part about being hyper local. Obviously, this is a
Hmm
Broncos town. Um, but it's also just about connecting, right? I don't even need to talk about real estate when I'm in those
Yep.
situations because it's not the new person that walks up that I care about. It's that family and that core of the family that I know and trust will, give my name to, the next person that needs it. So I don't need to be out there actively selling because the foundation has been laid through relationships.
Absolutely. Let's talk about, I want to get into like your client experience and then like balancing a family and then kind of course like our Wolfpack journey. You're known for being incredibly loyal to your clients and of course the client reviews help. Why do you think that has become like a skill you've really crafted that people appreciate about you?
Ultimately, it's, there's this thing, right? And I still feel it, right? And we've unfortunately experienced it a little bit recently if you've sold a lot of houses in the last 3 years, where maybe somebody got emotionally tied to a bidding war, right? And a house and spent more money than they probably should have on the home,
Hmm
right? Because there's always going to be an end to that, you know? And once that ended and interest rates kind of went up and home prices kind of stabilized or stopped, well, the truth is that agents have that pit in their stomach, right? I guarantee you can name one client that bought a house that isn't worth, what it was when they bought it, right? I have one that was pretty extreme, $100,000 over. And the ultimate truth is like we as agents sometimes shy away from that, right?
hmm
Because we got so used to being like, hey, here's what your home's worth. And it was a really positive thing. Typically, hey, in my market, you bought it last year and it's worth $75,000 more than it was at this time last year, or
hmm
100 or 50 or whatever it is. And so we got really used to that. But the hard conversations are actually where the value comes through,
hmm
right? Like, okay, here's what we need to do, right? First of all, don't get divorced, don't die, and don't relocate. Don't have your job relocate you. Some things they can control, some things they don't. I say that kind of jokingly. But we need to make sure that we are maintaining this asset and we need to make sure that we're not overspending on any updates if you plan to get on
hmm
top of the investment in the next 5 years, right? And so looking at that, is there a way, that your principal buy down or whatever, did you put 15% down and now you're getting pretty close to that 20% while your house hasn't gone up and we can't sell it because of the fees and things like that for what, you would net, it can we get the mortgage insurance off and drop that mortgage a little bit,
hmm
right? Or how can we turn this into a rental so that you can hold it so you're not losing on the asset? And then how can we, affordably move forward in the next piece if you need an extra bedroom or you don't need as much space because you're not working from home anymore or whatever that is. And so a strategic approach to that is absolutely the value that that people will appreciate, right?
Hmm.
Most people will understand that, you know, they don't understand the market, right? If you're an agent out there, I hope that when you're writing an offer, you at least look at the comps and share those with your clients so they can kind of have a vision, right?
Absolutely.
That's something I did even when I knew like, hey, these comps are saying this home is worth 550, but to win it we got to get 6 to 600, right? But I was sharing the data with them, right?
Absolutely.
Even if they didn't care, even if they didn't open it, those were sent to them so that they understood like if this all ends tomorrow and we I don't know have something happen that's negative in the economy that might happen every day, then like you're this is your house, but as long as you can afford that mortgage payment, we're good. You have shelter, you have a place to go. It's going to be fairly stable except for taxes and insurance,
Hmm.
and we'll be ready to roll. So it's all about planning, it's all about being a resource and not hiding, right? And so that annual review is really built for those people that are in that situation so we can get strategic about it and still help them reach their goals that aren't just completely inflated because of the market.
Yeah. So one of the things you said there was like being a resource for your clients. I would love for you to share because I've heard this story many times and I appreciate it every time. There was a listing you had and there was wording you put in the MLS that the person had listed with other agents and they never heard her really that, hey, this is something I really want in the MLS. Can you kind of explain that and kind of explain how you really try to hear and understand your clients and that's how you bring value to them?
Yeah, absolutely. This was actually one of my first YouTube leads. The video had 17 views. So keep posting videos.
Yep.
$1.2 million listing from a 17 view
Yep.
YouTube video. Right. And it was all about strategically marketing the price of the home. So we had a very analytical seller on the other side. Right. I knew that because she told me what video she watched. Um, and she had actually been circling around one of my buddies who happens to be the husband of one of my agents that recently joined, and he had actually sent her to someone else, and so I still give him a lot of crap about that. But he felt like my personality wasn't a good fit because she was so forthcoming, right? But she eventually got to me and my YouTube channel,
Hmm.
and she called me and I went over there, and there was a lot of weird things that were in her head, right? She thought that um the Coldwell Banker and Sotheby's brokers that were competing, she had one, her neighbor had the other, and said that the broker was trying to sell the other house because they worked at the same parent company. Okay, totally cool, whatever. It's more knowledge than most people have that those two companies are owned by the same parent company, or at least
Hmm.
before this recent news. And then she said that, she loved living there. They had done some cool stuff. It was a semi updated two-story, kind of the old school model with the stairs right in the middle, like very common. She had done some decent cosmetic updates, kitchen, so on. But she mentioned to me three, four, five, six times that you could walk to the elementary school, middle school, and high school campus, which happens to be all on one.
Hmm.
And she also mentioned to me that you could walk to the grocery store and I think it was a coffee shop or something else without crossing a major street. So both of those things were said to me at least 5 times while I was at this listing appointment. And it became clear to me that it was more important about how the home was marketed to her to get the best value versus pricing or anything. In fact, like I had to convince her to price it $50,000 higher than she wanted, and we got $50,000 more
Hmm.
than that. So what I did was I put that in the public listing description, right? And I put that in the beginning of my YouTube video, property tour. And ultimately, she put it in my 5-star review when she sold her home for $100,000 more than she thought she could.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's important, guys, as you listen to this, listen to your clients and hear them. I want to hear something because you talked about your word for the year being simplicity. I know a lot of realtors struggle with balance. I think we both try for, I don't know that we're great at it. What does balance look like with a wife and 3 kids and also like, right, a production business where you're doing really well, 200 agents? Like, how do you balance it all and what does your schedule look like on a day-to-day operation?
Well, oddly enough, my 10-year-old sitting right here asking me if I need lunch. So I'll say yes to her real quick. But she was just staring at me for 30 seconds. So
Oh
that was
my
the perfect
goodness.
time for that question and to
There you
answer it.
go.
But um, as far as balancing it just, I mean, it requires open communication,
Yep.
right? There's been weeks that I'm just like, look, I'm smoked. Like, I have to do XYZ. These are the times I'm available. Making them a priority is
Yep.
certainly key. But I think a lot of times that real estate agents say they're so busy and do all of this, but the truth is they're not doing needle moving activities. They're just kind of doing the thing, scrolling, waiting for someone to raise their hand and say, I want to buy a house on Facebook. Do you know any realtors in my city?
Yep.
Right? That's not a really good use of time, ultimately, as it turns out. Hopefully your army of people will see that and tag you, and then you'll be notified and you'll be good.
Hmm.
But um I think ultimately it's just what you want, right? There's an old adage that says, show me your calendar and I'll tell you your priorities. I don't necessarily 100% agree with that because my calendar is filled with three different businesses that I run. And,
Yep.
you know, my kids' calendar also looks like that with their gymnastics activities, with
Hmm.
their homeschool activities, and all of that. And so, but I do think that there is something in it where it's like this is dedicated time and nothing can change it, right? And so my sponsor and one of my coaches and mentors, Louis Galt, said, you know, like he just had this concept where in his calendar just says nope.
Yep.
Right? So when he's talking to clients and this is what he did, he's from Scotland, so this is his simplicity piece. But essentially if someone's like, "Hey, can we meet at 6 p.m. on Tuesday?" and that was his dedicated time with his kids and family, he would look at his calendar and be like, "Oh, nope, I can't. I have something on the calendar." He doesn't have to say that nope's on the calendar, but
Yep.
it's just a subtle reminder, and that really helped me start to get those non-negotiables in there. And it's especially important when things pick up, right? Last week I had 4 listing appointments. I had multiple calls with agents. I have calls with CEOs of companies that are looking to partner and do all this
Yep.
stuff. I had new listing come in. I had old listing, divorce, relocation, all of it, right? And it was the first week of the year. And, like I shared with you, I was just like, dude, I just took a break from content. Part of the reason is
Hmm.
because I'm just slammed with all this active stuff. Now I will pick it up with intentionality, before this is even released. But I think that it's just really that intentionality and understanding what's of utmost importance.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point for people because realtors ask you and me all the time, like, oh, how do I balance? And I even just ask you, like, I think balance in different seasons look like different things. When your girls have gymnastics competitions, like you're going, it's non-negotiable. I've been at events with you and you're like, I do not care. I am flying home. So
Mhm.
balance in that season looks a little different, I think, also for anyone with young kids like we both have. Balance doesn't always like I feel like even still me and my wife with 2 young kids get to the end of the day and we're like, whoo, we survived. So we don't necessarily feel balanced, but I think balance looks like um I give the things the time that deserve my time and I want to have my time. None of us need me and you, none of us listening to this really want to like go through our whole week without spending time with our spouse or spending time with our kids. That's not balance. And so are there weeks where that happens for both of us? Absolutely. But as realtors listening to this, I want to encourage all of you that you need some sort of balance, but it also might be, hey, this month is a little busier. Okay, then I'm committing that next month we're going away as a family, we're doing something. And I know, Jay, you do that a lot. You guys travel, you have a cabin you guys go to, you go on the lake. And so I'm sure, kind of like you get to the summer, real estate's still busy, but you're like, all right, now it's time to prioritize some family stuff during that time.
Yeah, I think it's super important, and there's a major myth in this world that the summer is the busiest time for real estate, and so on, because ultimately, especially here, Denver's very much a destination, right? You can get up to the mountains
Mm-hmm.
in an hour, those kind of things. Like July is one of our slowest months,
Mm-hmm.
right? And people say the spring and May is one of our slowest months, right? I tell people all the time the spring starts in January, which is proving true. And the best time to list your home is sometime between the
Yep.
Super Bowl and Easter,
Yep.
right? That's reality based on statistics, but you would never guess that. Like if you just walk up to a real estate agent, and they're like, when's the busiest time?" They're like, "Oh, summer." Well, it's busy because we have other things going on. There's more opportunities to do things.
Mm-hmm.
There's more FOMO. And I think that that's really important to create your non-negotiables in your busy season and stick to them, right? And then in the slower times, like I just said, May and July, it's really important to expand on those non-negotiables, those family time, and take that, right? Because if you're slower in your career or whatever you're doing, and you're not increasing that connection time with family and so on, you're missing an opportunity, right? And you're doing the bare minimum because ultimately, busy season, you're going to have less time, right? When our kids are in school and when they're in gymnastics year round, they're doing that. We have less time when we're busy as well in our career. But in some of the slower months, kids are still doing those things. Maybe they're in school, maybe they're not, but we have the opportunity to increase that time, to increase that impact. And I think that that's super important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on today and for being a great mentor and friend. We got a couple minutes left. Let's kind of talk about a couple things. Let's talk about the transition to leave your dad's brokerage, and come to EXP Realty, and not only EXP, but our massive record-breaking group, the Wolf Pack. What kind of led to that? Well, we'll start there, and then I'll kind of share about my journey to EXP and meeting you. But what led to that decision? What made you say, "Hey, I need to do this for my business and my family"?
Yeah, it was actually always kind of on the back burner, right? I'd begun following Mike and,
Mm-hmm.
eventually saw that this guy that was running the same ads that I was and doing all the things but looked way different and talked way different than me, Louis, had followed Mike over. Unbeknownst to me, we started following Mike on the same day on the same call. I think that it was always on my mind, right? So when you're in Mike's funnel, when you're on his ad list, you see his stuff constantly. He spends a lot of money on that. And I had, reached out for this massive opportunity that he had pitched, whatever, jumped on a call, and it was an EXP Explain call, right? Truth is, it is a massive opportunity. But one time I was like, hey, Sarah, let's watch this one, see what he has to say.
Yeah.
And after that call, she was like, that's where you're going. Like, that's where you're going to end up. Right. And so
Mm-hmm.
I kind of had that on my mind. Right. I wasn't actively pursuing it. I didn't want to leave my dad's brokerage or, the brokerage. But ultimately, as I kind of started breaking this down and where this goes and, the hamster wheel of real estate and what I want it to look like, I got real truthful about the numbers. I got real truthful about what I had built as far as 40 to 50 transactions a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then the numbers made sense, right? So that was the next thing. I'm at 100% brokerage paying $500 a transaction. There's no way that
Yeah.
anything else is cheaper. Well,
Yeah.
when you multiply 500 by 52, these it does get cheaper,
Yeah.
right? When there's a cap and a split, and there are other resources and so on, right? Like, I mean, now I make 300% of what I pay the company,
Yeah.
right? With rev share and
Yeah.
stock and all the things, right? So my company pays me to be here,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, it just kind of kept coming and kept coming. My dad was getting closer to retirement. And finally, I just said, look, like this is, an itch I have to scratch. I talked to the employing broker of the brokerage. My dad was a manager. And I just said, hey, look, like you've talked to me about taking over for my dad when he retires. Like, if that's the case, like I want to do some recruiting and mentoring and coaching and retention over litigation and broker hotline and those kind of things because the time required and time invested was going to be far more than the compensation.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I was like, well, I got to have some sort of compensation structure in addition to this if I'm going to take 40 hours a week to be in the office and take away from my production. And ultimately, it was a trap question. I knew he wasn't going to do it, right? Not my dad. This is the employing
Yeah.
broker.
Yeah.
And he just said, no, we're happy with how we're doing it and what we do here. So, I said, cool. I said, well, I'm going to be transparent with you. Like, I have to take advantage of this opportunity that is EXP. And I
Yeah.
came over, called Louis up, who I had met with, and he was like, what? Where'd that come from? And ultimately, it was just brewing the whole time, starting with my wife just shooting me straight, saying that's where you're going to end up. And
Mm-hmm.
so once that happened, I came over and, ultimately the same question I asked my employing broker, like if I could do with no barriers and no liability and none of that here at EXP. So I was
Yeah.
really asking if I could build what I could build at EXP without it. And ultimately, I'm really glad he said what he did because the upper structure was not there, right? the partnership with Mike and the Wolfpack and
Hmm.
Connor and Louie. That was a launch pad to what I've built now, and then we move on to Carbon Collective, and we're you know adding that to the Wolfpack
Yeah.
value stack, real coaching, real impact, and yeah, that's the story.
Yeah, it's so funny even like talking to you now, being a friend of yours. We just got back from a conference in Florida with Vincent Puglisi, the unconference that we stayed together. And it's just so funny because like I remember coming over. You got on a call with me to talk about social media. It was an EXP pitch. And I'm like, do not, I'm not here to talk about EXP. You're like, okay, then and we talk social media. But then I watched you serve my membership that you're still on the calls on Mondays as best, as much as you can be, helping people, serving me, serving agents. I came out to a podcast conference in Denver and you're like, oh, just stay at our house. So I was like, this guy's either really nice or an expert or there's no in between, but I'm about to find out. So I got to meet you and of course, like your two girls at the time, and now you got three. Um, and never felt like like you acted like I was family. I was, we were there a Sunday and your family was over and we were just all hanging out. But I just think it's kind of wild what can be built. It's so funny because people go Google it, guys. Like the people say EXP is a pyramid scheme. EXP is this. I mean, we make no money unless we help you grow your business. I actually, and Jay may like tell me if you agree. Like I feel like the traditional brokerage is more a pyramid scheme than EXP ever could be because we don't make any money. They don't pay John. They don't pay Jeremy. Do we get revenue share? Yes. If they sell homes, if we help them sell homes, a small percentage. But other brokerages, you're giving people 10, 20, 30% of your money. And what are they giving you for it? And so it's kind of wild. I feel like even for me, all these misconceptions I had, I was on a call probably from this desk arguing with you when I said I was never coming. Then when I agreed to come, I'm like, fine, but I'm not recruiting agents. And you laughed at me. Jeremy laughs at me a lot, guys. You laughed and you're like, John, you do not get it at all. He's like, I'm not going to argue with you. He's learned I'm a little stubborn. He's like, you're never going to recruit an agent. He's like, people will come to you naturally. Now I have over 50 agents. I've never pitched any of them, never been in their inbox. And it's so wild because anyone watching this, like, you're so close-minded to this opportunity because you need a physical officer or whatever. And I would just say, like, give it a chance. When I came, and I think Jeremy knew this, I thought and prayed about it. And I said, Val, I feel like I have to go. My brother-in-law, it was New Year's Eve, I guess 3 or 4 years ago now. My brother-in-law we were at his cabin and he's like, how much business would you leave using this big box brokerage as opposed to EXP? And I'm like, that's the best question anyone's ever asked. And I realized it was one deal, one deal. And then I thought about the opportunities, and it's just so wild because if you're watching this, like, trust me, I had all these things. I don't want to recruit. I need a physical office. I need these, and now as I thought and prayed about it, I was like, I need to try this. I gotta kind of like you said, I gotta scratch that itch. Then I came over. I came over with the biggest team at EXP in Pennsylvania. Now I have 50 agents and get to support and help them grow. And it's just kind of been cool to build it with you as a mentor. And guys, I will say this about Jeremy, and I'm so glad he's the first interview here. There has never been a time that I'd call or text or email. In fact, I moved this meeting 3 times like a like a crazy person. He's like, "No worries, we got this. It's fine." And I think you genuinely care and serve people. So I just want to say I appreciate you and I'm thankful for you. But I mean, it's just wild to me. And I was the guy 3 years ago that I'm like, this is so dumb. I would never go there. Now I'm like, how did I wait so long?
Yeah, and I think it's, kind of come to fruition and recently when I'm having meetings with people and we're breaking down since we've added this Carbon Collective kind of
Yeah.
coaching direct to you where you're at in your business as an agent, it's it's changed, right? There's a lot of things that come at a lot of people. And now it's less about like, hey, we have XYZ. It's like, hey, what do you want to do with your business? Because we got it. We got a
Yes.
tool for that. And it's a different formation of conversation when it all comes to like, because I was talking to somebody that joined a different line yesterday in our organization. I was like, you got this, you got this, you got this, you got this, you got this. Like, it was a lot and I could feel it being like too much, right? And so now I have to figure out how we're going to introduce everything so that people understand it's there, but then not get overwhelmed by it. So that's a new
Yeah.
challenge that we have, but it's a really good challenge because
Hmm.
I don't care any agent, 100 deals a year or never, got their license yesterday. Zero deals, zero friends, no family. Like we have a system and a pathway
Yeah.
to get you to success. And so I'm really honored to be kind of smack dab in the middle of all of that,
Hmm.
leading you guys, my front line as far as, hey, find your zone of genius and, expand on it. But then also, helping those above me do different things and providing value to them and their agents as well. It's just a really cool community and setup, and it just truly doesn't exist, right? And it was really funny because the day before this interview, I had a in-person meeting, and it was a parent who is at the gym that my kids train at. And he was
Hmm.
an agent, does about 10 to 12 deals a year. He's been in it for 7 or 8 years. And he had been talking to my wife. Like I knew he was another agent. I was focused on, building my business where my feet are and getting my deals out of
Hmm.
there. I got 3 out of there last year. And so I didn't really kind of approach the subject with him. Well, my wife had been behind the scenes because they're on the booster club board together and just kind of talking about my successes, and he would open up a little bit more to her about what he was doing and what he was seeing in the industry and that kind of stuff. And she would just mention, oh yeah, Jeremy has 200 agents, or Jeremy's speaking here, Jeremy's doing this. So that influence kind of infiltrated without being in his face. She never was like, you should join him, whatever. But this Sunday, he reached out and said, "Hey, I'm leaving Compass, and I'm looking at other brokerages." So we sat down. It was definitely a conversation that I knew he was just kind of trying to feel out the waters, and he just said to me flat out what we've heard Mike say on explain calls over and over again. He said, I've had 7 other interviews with brokerages, and all of them are pretty much like, you got to prove it, and then, we'll consider helping you. Like this guy
Yeah.
does 10 deals a year. Like the average agent did 0 last year.
Yeah.
Right. And so he said, I knew within 3 minutes that I was going to join you. Right. We
Yeah.
talked for 45 about just different strategies and, giving him everything that he could imagine. And he's like, okay, let's go. But it's just a testament to kind of how people attract agents and recruit agents. Like they're not property. they're
Hmm.
not they're not this, right? And the truth is if someone's doing 10 deals a year, like they're going to make me some money, they're going to make my organization some money, and my goal is to help them do 10 more if they want to,
Yes.
right? And so I don't care if you've never sold a house, if you've never talked to anything but a cat. Like let's figure out how to grow a business in your way, on your terms. And it's just really interesting to me that these, bigger brokerages or even the boutique brokerages are pretty much like, this is what we offer. Here's what we do for you. But you have to do XYZ for us first before
Yeah.
you get the full meal deal.
And I think it's so cool. I mean, I came over, I had all these negative thoughts, but then when I came over, I was like, this is crazy, right? I've had calls with Brian Ellington, right? Russ Lagan, Alyssa Specht, who like me and her are about to roll out like an EXP University entire social media thing. Maybe I shouldn't say anything, Alyssa. I don't know, right? Because she's like, anytime you want to serve, we want agents that want to serve. And at my old brokerage, it just wasn't like that. They're like, no, you're not good enough, and they had favorites and all this. So, man, I appreciate you, appreciate the partnership. Let's close it out with this quick. Maybe one thought, 30 seconds for an agent struggling right now in their business. What would be like a piece of advice you would give them to build a more sustainable real estate business?
I think it's really about who you surround yourself with and making sure that you have support and motivation, right? A lot of times we're not defined by our brokerage by any means, but a
Yep,
lot of times that can be the difference between a record year and a terrible year, is just having that support in that community. And so
yep,
who are you surrounded by? Are they helping? Are they hindering? And what is it that you seek? I think are questions that you ask yourself. And if you need more, or you need more education, or you want to dive into social media, or you want to dive into sphere of influence, things like that, then let's have a conversation. And if it's a fit, it's a fit. If it's not, it's not. But I think that a lot of times life's too short to surround yourself by people just because of a brand or a name or something like that. What are we doing to reciprocate a relationship that can change your life?
yeah, and I would say too to agents, show me the people you're around, and I'll show you your future and your business. I'm around people like Jeremy Kane, Louis Galt, Connor Steinberg, Mike Sherrod. They are crushing it in what they do. I don't, we had an agent, and Jeremy knows who this is. And recently they were named the number one agent in their brokerage, and they're not even doing a lot of business. And I don't mean in a disrespectful way, but I'm like, I would leave that brokerage. I don't want to be the top agent here. I want to be surrounded by people making me better. So, well, Jay, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for everything. Thanks for how you've encouraged me and helped me. Anyone watching this video, where's the best place for them to connect, follow you, or learn more from you?
Yeah, the Real Estate Agent Playbook on YouTube or on Instagram, the RE Agent Playbook.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks so much. See you
All
guys.
right.
Thanks for watching.